Hello. I do have a presentation that I'll do a little bit of, but I think we're going to sort of go off that for a minute. You know, it's all about transformation, it seems like. Execution we haven't talked about much. We've all talked about transformation, so I changed the slide. But let me run through this a little bit, but then I want to have a dialogue and a conversation with the rest of you. So about me, you can learn 3 things out of that picture about me. Oscar, what's one of them?
You have a good swing.
I have a good swing. There you go. Okay, that's one. Richard, what's another thing you can learn about that picture about me?
You like shorts and tall
I like skirts? No. I live in San Francisco. That's the Golden Gate Bridge. And I do like Caddyshack, which is a movie. So those are the 3 things you can learn about me on that picture. Transformation. Big topic. I don't think it's really dealt with very much. There's a lot of lip service is what I would call it, but not a lot of reality going on as it relates to transformation. So when you're finished changing, you're finished. Who said that? Anybody? Who said that? This guy named Ben Franklin. He was a pretty famous guy in the U.S., maybe not around the world, but pretty famous guy in the U.S. He invented a few things. And you have to maintain a culture of transformation to stay true to your values. That was said by the guy who's running LinkedIn. How many of you use LinkedIn? Everybody, yeah. So these guys know what they're talking about. So I do think, you know, it's time to transform, but I think I'm going to take this up a notch to another level. So, you know, undergoing transformation, that's how, even before that, we used to get around walking, and then we rode horses, and then we had the horse and buggy. And I know some of you drive a Tesla. How many of you drive a Tesla? There's 1, 2, 3. Yeah, there's some. Oh, nice. So that's like the newest thing, right? But after that, it's going to drive itself because Google's creating the self-driving car. So you'll have the Tesla. You don't even drive your Tesla anymore, which is kind of weird, right? Because they made it a great driving experience, and then they're going to take it away from you. Strange, in my opinion. But that's undergoing considerable transformation in a very short amount of time. From the Tesla to the self-driving car is going to be less than 10 years. I mean, that's radical transformation. The world out there is very, very crowded. If we raised our hands of how many companies in this room do some form of listings management, we'd probably get half a dozen arms going up, right? Or website building, or anything. I mean, there's a lot of crowded companies. It's very, very crowded out there. Scheduling platforms, how many are there? How many are there out there that you compete with?
In Europe, maybe 5.
5?
5 relevant ones, yeah.
5 big ones.
Yeah.
In the U.S., there are probably 50 scheduling platforms.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very crowded. So the question is, how are you going to stand out of that crowd? It's very, very hard. It's very hard. Free is a good way. That's how you guys are doing it. Bundle it in is another way. A lot of ways to try and stand out from the crowd. But there is a lot of people out there all competing in the same space. So in regards to sales transformation, I think, you know, everybody wishes their folks were somewhere in between these people. Whether they're the cowboys who are so gung-ho trying to get money that they never do any research, they just show up at the customer. Somebody's laughing up here, right? Or the librarian who wants to spend all day researching and never goes out on a call. And everybody has those people in their organizations, right? Some of your guys are cowboys, or some of your women are cowboys. Some of them are librarians. And the right mix, you can't get it right. It's never going to be right. So I would argue that computers will do this better than people. So here's my premise. In 5 years, so the first AdPi conference I went to was in 2002. That's 13 years ago. Who remembers where that was? No? I was in Melbourne. with Andrew Day. He put on a very, very generous spread for everybody. That was 13 years ago. And it seems to me that we've been talking a lot about the same issues for the better part of those 13 years. We're going to transform the salespeople. We're going to give them tools. We're going to give them new technologies. We're going to do all these things to transform how salespeople sell in this world. And overnight we're going to have some new successes. So I'm going to think about that for a minute, and we'll keep going down through this. It's really hard for reps to be engaging. And, if you can get a rep to engage with people, it's pretty spectacular, I think. Because reps like to show up and show show people their features and benefits. They don't really want to engage. They want to get a contract and they want to get out of there. Who knows this quote? And by the way, when you're telling these little stories, here's a good idea. Have a point. This may not translate for everybody's language, but have a point. Say something meaningful. It makes it so much more interesting for the listener. So that comes from a movie called Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. It's a very poignant point in that movie with Steve Martin. Anybody know Steve Martin? Those non-Americans know Steve Martin? And John Candy. Great movie. But have a point. And reps miss this. They just go out there and they want to, show off their product, get the contract and leave. And so over the course of the last 3 years, I think, I've been working with the Buzzboard folks, and they have a platform that is is trying to make this transformation happen. And what we see is that there are a handful of reps in all these organizations. I think Buzzboard has something like 70 companies, probably 10 big companies, and there's a subset of all the reps who really get it. But that subset of reps is probably, out of the whole sales force, it might be 10 or 20%. 20% at the max can do the job extraordinarily well. And then 80% you're going to try and transform. So let me ask you this question. Now I'm going to go off sort of script. How many of you bought your ticket online to come to this conference? Okay. How many of you flew the airplane to get here? Oh, you did? You did fill out your airplane? That's awesome. That is awesome.
I don't want to be on that plane.
Okay, now that is cool. This guy flew his airplane to get here. How many of you bought something at Amazon recently? A lot of you. How many of you actually delivered it or built it to that product or delivered that service to yourself? What'd you deliver to yourself? You delivered it?
You built it. You said built it.
Well, did you build the product you bought? Let's say you bought a toaster. Did you build that?
Yeah, I built this treehouse thing for my.
You built the treehouse. Well, you built a kit to build the treehouse. Okay. My point is that when we have talked, Charlie, in this industry about self-service, we've always sort of fallen into this, I think, a trap of saying that, well, small businesses will never self-service. And it's true, they won't self-service. They're not going to build the products they buy at Amazon. They're not going to fly the airplanes they fly. How many of you do online banking? Everybody does online banking. Do you actually move the money? You don't move the money. The bank moves the money, right? They do the fulfillment of all this stuff. How many of you ever bought shoes at Zappos? Zappos is American. Zappos was bought by Amazon. Everybody knows Amazon. Amazon does not, they do not have salespeople selling me products. I go to Amazon and I go buy a product. And they then put all their resources, all their money into getting me that product exactly what I want as quickly as I want it. That is what they focus on. And if you don't like it, what do? they take it back. So they put all of their emphasis on customer service and support. That's where most of their money is going. Customer service and support, the logistics of getting it there. So in this industry, we've always talked about self-service, and we've sort of fallen into the trap of suggesting that that means that these SMBs are going to build the website, launch their AdWords campaign, optimize their site for SEO, and do all these things that they're never going to do. Just like you're never going to fly the airplane to get here. You're not going to, clean your room when you get to the hotel, even though you bought it online. So I think we're going to see in the next 5 years a significant shift toward self-purchasing of marketing solutions as a general theme. Because I think what's underneath that are a couple things. One is the buyers, those SMBs out there, are now sufficiently along in their digital journey where they're comfortable buying nearly anything online. They're online all day. I wouldn't, there's some statistics that the user today is on their phone or check their phones 150 times a day. I bet there are many of us in this room who check our phones at least that often. And this is not the youngest group of people I've ever talked to, okay? I see people checking their phone in the men's room, okay? I mean, we're checking our phones everywhere and anywhere we can. And that same consumer who does that is also today's business owner. And they're prepared to buy things online like we never thought before. That doesn't mean they're going to fulfill it. That means they're going to buy it. And so I believe that we're within, 3 to 5 years, Charlie, of real significant shift toward self-purchasing of marketing solutions by the merchants.
So Neal, you're making a distinction between self-purchasing and self-provisioning.
That's right. Because they're not going to build their website. I mean, some will. They're not going to optimize their SEO, for SEO. They're not going to translate a website to a mobile and a responsive site. They're not going to do that. But they're going to buy what they want, and then somebody out there is going to decide that instead of trying to transform 500 or 1,000 reps or 50 reps or whatever, they're going to put that money into fulfilling and servicing after it's bought. And that's going to be a transformational approach to the marketplace. And Michael was up here this morning talking about sales. Now maybe in the back of his mind, he's thinking the same thing I'm thinking in 5 years. I don't know. I'll have to have that conversation with him. But I think that as you think of, all of this sales transformation that we've talked about for 10 years, Kelsey Group, is really a function of how do we make a business model work where we've gone from margins of 50 and 60 and 70% gross margins to a world where we're at 20 and 30 maybe gross margins with the same cost structure on the sales side, where we're having to invest and train and train and train and train, and you can't train people sufficiently to sell in this digital world today. And the cost of doing that is just, it's enormous. So I think next 5 years, we are going to see a significant shift on the part of the buyers, the SMBs saying, you know what? Don't send me anybody. I don't want to hear from you on the phone. I don't want somebody knocking on my door, because you know what? I'm getting inundated with people doing that today. And we're going to find an opportunity where somebody is going to set up a self-buying platform, and that organization is going to put all their resources on service and fulfillment. Because that's where the challenge is today. Everybody can go get a sale once, right? Everybody can make one sale. It's making the renewal, it's keeping the customer happy, it's getting out of the churn issue. That's where the challenges are. And, you know, if you look at the cost structure of many of your companies, certainly the US local media companies, what's the cost structure look like? Well, I'd say 80% of it's probably in salespeople, you know, and a fraction of it is in, you know, maybe it's 30% in traffic acquisition, 60% in sales. That leaves like 5% for customer service and 5% for profit. They're not much there. And if somebody flips that upside down and says, you know what, we're going to let them come to us and buy, and we're going to put our money in service and fulfillment, maybe we'll be able to see the dynamics and economics of this industry change. So, you know, I think that's where we are. And, you know, you can say, oh, you're crazy, Neal. You don't know what you're talking about. People will always be part of this equation. I think that is wishful thinking, I think. I really do. I think it is hoping upon hope that in today's world, that salesperson can be value add to your business. Now, I'm not saying all of them will go away, because at the top end where the economics work, the salesperson can fit in there and relationships will be very valuable. But at the lower end of that pyramid, you know, where the US has, what, Charlie, maybe it's 15 million available SMBs to who could buy. You know, well, if there are 2 million that'll be serviced by people, I'd be surprised. You know, maybe it's 5 million. Let's say that. Let's be generous and say it's 5 million, the top end.
You could say it could be as many as 20 million.
Okay, so they're 20 million, whatever it is.
Total, maybe say 10% of that.
The medium-sized businesses, the top-tier small businesses who are spending $10,000 and $20,000 a month, they'll have salespeople. But this vast number of SMBs, or of small businesses below that, you cannot afford to hire, to train, to teach, to send out, to get on phones, those people, to economically deliver value to your company and to deliver value to them. You can't do it. It's impossible. It's an equation that no longer works, in my opinion. And the buyers, those merchants, they're totally comfortable buying online. You show them where their deficiencies are. You show them, you know, you need to fix this on your website. You need a responsive site. Small businesses can understand that, and they'll check boxes and say, okay, I'll buy that, I'll buy this. Just like I needed to get to Kuala Lumpur, I went to United and it said you could take this flight or this flight or this flight, and I picked one. I didn't fly the plane or make the food, I didn't do any of that. I bought the ticket though. And so I think as business owners, as owners of local media businesses, if you're not thinking about how to be truly disruptive about how you go to market, then you're not doing your shareholders service by not rethinking how you go to market in 3 to 5 years. And that's not saying they all go away, but I'm suggesting that to sell to the lower end of the market, self-buying platforms are going to be a must. And if you don't, you'll find yourself with a cost structure that is upside down in tomorrow's marketplace. Charlie?
All right, Neal. Well, I'm sure there's a range of opinions out here about whether that's true or not. I'm sure that a range of opinions probably reflects the range of markets that we have here and the different conditions that they're all in. But your basic premise is that the cost structure is sort of slowly eroding.
This is where the
Yeah.
business owner is living.
Yeah.
This is where they're living. They're going to live on their phones. They're going to maybe die on their phones, as they say, because I saw one guy, I think it was here in Kuala Lumpur the other day. He's on his little motor scooter and he's texting riding with one hand up a sidewalk.
He may have died.
He may have died already on his phone.
Um,
But this is where business is being run. And so if you don't think about that and seriously think about how to be truly disruptive about how you go to market, I think you're really not doing your shareholders doing them the right favor.
okay,
Okay, now I'll get off my...
that's fine. So, how are we doing on time?
I think we got a lot of time. I only used up like 10 minutes, didn't I?
Okay, I just want to check. I forgot my watch. So, okay, but there's a whole piece that has to happen here, and that the platforms.
5 minutes.
Okay, the platforms and the tools that will enable companies to market to these businesses in some other way, content marketing or some sort of outbound marketing.
Yep.
To bring inbound
Yep.
sales. So there's a whole infrastructure that has to be
That's
built.
already being built up because a lot of companies are already doing that with email marketing and messaging into content marketing. I think content marketing is frankly inundating our email boxes with stuff we cannot possibly consume. Impossible to consume the number of pieces of information coming into our email.
Okay,
But okay.
the underlying premise is that
Is that
people-
something will trigger that I need something.
Yeah.
I don't have any customers. I need to go find some advertising and some marketing solutions because I don't have any customers. And I'm going to go to some site that I believe, maybe it'll be Amazon. I mean, I could see Amazon definitely pulling this off because they know what self-buying is all about. They are the best at self-buying. And they can recommend. So I think there's going to be something that triggers that inbound thing, where companies are already doing that, trying to drive calls to their telephone centers. But that's Michael said he's built up a bunch of call centers that he's probably sending out messages to get inbound calls. And maybe they're doing outbound too.
I would imagine it's outbound.
Yes, so something will have to trigger that. I think once you get the person to a site, okay, that business owner, the buying process, the path of buying will be relatively straightforward because there'll be an analysis of their business. They'll say, do you want 500, leads that we, based on our algorithms, 500 leads from various sources will convert at X%, and given your kind of business where your average customer value is X, you need this many to get this kind of response, right? To drive this kind of business. So I think all that will be in place. So the big thing is, imagine a world tomorrow where there were no reps out there, okay? I think the merchants would find their way to the best site that delivered the best value. They would self-purchase, and then the money would be pushed into fulfillment, which we know, as Michael said, 14 days, too long, they leave, right? So that the provisioning of this stuff is instantaneous, or as close to instantaneous, and it fulfills, and it's right, and it's clean, and it's done. And that's what reduces churn. Churn is extremely expensive. It's probably the most expensive investment in this industry is churn. Okay?
Well, the antidote to churn is service quality.
That's right. And I'd ask Michael, he won't share, but anybody, where do most of these companies put their resources today? Michael?
These companies being...
Local media companies, it's very little of it's in service and fulfillment. Manish?
So Neal, earlier slide was there's too many people out there, hard to distinguish between the vendors. Your premise is that we self-provision, or sorry, not self-provision, self-buy.
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 Merchants will buy. Yes.
Merchants will buy. So as companies that are in the room,
Yeah.
are you suggesting that maybe you build a layer on top of all the, I mean, because right now in the United States, as you know, as an example, you go around to these conferences, BIA Kelsey, LSA, whatever, they all say the same thing, they all do the same thing. We had a chart earlier about the number of products that are being sold now. Eventually, that everyone will catch up to that commodity point. So is the answer then a layer on top that as a provider potentially, I partner with 5 people, but my website says I do everything even though I don't, but I've invested everything in service.
I
think
There
you
has to be
invest
integrated.
in, I mean, that's what Amazon does. Amazon doesn't build anything. They resource the best products. Consumers then, you know, there it says this product sucks or this product is great. You will see the same dynamic happening in this marketing solutions world.
I mean, you're getting to the point of no one's going to self-purchase a multiple point solutions. They're probably going to need some sort of integrated stack.
Yeah, but I guess what I'm saying is
Yeah.
that, you know, if the point is, if we take this point to the next level,
Yeah.
right, then companies, let's just say a few of these in the room, would have to step up a little bit. They'd have to offer this self-buying platform.
Yes?
Yeah.
And then, you know, maybe there's, you know, 3 solutions for reservations and 3 solutions
Right.
for this, whatever, you
Right.
do whatever you want. And then the ratings themselves
Will,
will, you know, move it along, but it's us moving up to another level.
I think it's the local media companies, the YPs of the world, the Yellow Page companies, the newspaper companies of the world, shifting their focus from selling from people selling to technology selling and enabling, and then service provisioning. That's where I think it's going to go.
Michael?
Oh, Mike. Okay, Mike.
Or
Paul's back
Paul's
there.
back there. Michael's next.
I would contest.
You would contest.
That I think it's only a matter of time before somebody like Amazon starts to sell local things.
Before, well, they're already selling, and they're selling with people. Okay.
That's already what they're starting to do in the UK.
Yeah, they're using people to sell today to the same customers that the YP sell to today. But I think that's just for them to kind of figure out how to do this a little bit, and then they're going to flip it over to a self-buying platform, and people just go to Amazon. Because everybody knows you can buy everything at Amazon. I might as well buy marketing services there too if I'm a merchant.
Well, that was the point I was trying
Yeah.
that was the point I was trying to make this morning when I said the great of the e-world is coming into this space. Because people trust Amazon, people trust Apple, people trust Microsoft. That sooner or later they're going to start moving from commodities into services.
That I agree. Totally agree.
Michael?
I was very suspicious why you have been so friendly this morning. So now I know why. I think if we, I'm a little bit skeptic if someone says this is the end of the world. I think the invention of printing machines wasn't the end of book writings and stuff like that. And I think still if human beings are involved, there's a solution and a creative solution for something. In the supermarket, I think you find the chewing gums next to the cashier because people are more likely to grab it there.
Right.
Yeah. In Germany, if you go to buy gas, I think you pay twice or three times the price in the gas station for the same thing, which is some other stuff. So I think we are not very logical buyers. We are more emotional driven. And if it really the machines are going to take over, yeah, and try to do business with themselves, which is going likely to happen on the whole sensor things which are around us, I think there's always one solution, and the ones who saw Terminator Genesis know that there's at least one Austrian who can save us. So I'm not worried.
You know that same Austrian tried to save the state of California and failed, so it didn't work. I know Peter would like to chime in, so let's wait for Peter to chime in because
Is there a microphone that Peter?
he's got one now, I think.
Well, Neil, obviously this is market specific, but I think in any environment that I've had involvement in, both advanced markets and totally unadvanced markets, I don't see evidence that one day the SME will be doing it all himself. I just don't see that. I don't think he's going to be competent enough to do that, either today, tomorrow, or the next day.
Oh, hold on,
I
Peter.
think, you know-
Peter, let's be clear about what I'm saying. They're not going to provision their website. They're not going to build their website. They're not going to optimize their site for search engines.
You're suggesting they just order it?
They're going to order it. I believe they're going to order, it's self-buying, not self-provisioning. That's what I'm saying. So I agree with you, they're not going to build these things.
Yeah, but he won't know what he needs to buy.
Pardon me?
Well, what
He
you
won't
say,
be smart enough to know what he wants to buy.
I think the machines will tell him what to buy. That's my opinion.
But I don't.
I know.
I don't see that.
I know, and we have these friendly debates, and that's a good thing.
Well, I know you're provoking, Neil, and so I'm responding.
I'm not, you know,
well, the fundamental problem is that the cost is all in the channel, and the margins are compressing because the nature of
the
products
economics
are destroying the channel all the time.
the economics are such that it's impossible to get out of this.
And
Well, Neil,
that's
I
going to be
think the
different in
answer to
different
that
places over time, right?
You know, you've got to measure the revenue potential per category to decide how much sales cost you want to invest. And that will be totally different category by category.
I think I think it's actually customer by customer. Because I could say that there's a plumber here who's spending $10,000 a month and they'll have a salesperson. And there's a plumber here who's spending $200 a month and that they'll be self-buying.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree.
Now, I didn't say they'll all go away, did I? I just said that to serve that lower end of spenders, it's going to be
Well, I
self-buying.
think
Yeah,
everyone,
but you were suggesting, Neil, that the sales force would become cost prohibitive.
I said it for most of the marketplace, yes.
Okay.